So graceful, so elegant. Croeso friends, welcome back to Opus Elenae, where we can't seem to stop making Viking clothes. One of the downsides to having a smaller wardrobe that is repeatedly worn is that items tend to wear out faster than a bigger wardrobe. Partner's Viking kit is like this, with fewer pieces that are starting to show some signs of wear. A few months ago, and by a few months I mean February of 2022, we made him a couple of tunics to add into the rotation, and earlier this year it became evident that we were going to need to do the same thing with trousers. You may remember from my Viking capsule wardrobe video that we have 3 basic styles of trousers for masculine impressions: chausses, Thorsberg trousers, and Hedeby trousers. Partner was wanting to try out some of the Hedeby kind, which are also known, albeit incorrectly, as Ruse pants. They're the very baggy, poofy trousers that are densely gathered at waist and knee and are worn with tunics and winnegas. Like so many other Viking-era Scandinavian finds, there is scant evidence to support how these trousers might be fully constructed. One of the surviving fragments shows the novel and mind-bending way the leg, seat, and crotch gusset all come together. The pants consist of a wide trapezoidal piece at the seat of the pants, a long trapezoidal piece that forms the crotch gusset, and 2 leg pieces with one straight side and one side with a curved rise and correspondingly curved inseam. And then you sew them together like a Mobius strip. Seriously, I think a degree in advanced physics probably would have helped me immensely. However, after studying Project Broadaxe's fantastic post and watching both Jimmy and Naomi make videos on their interpretations, links all in the description and the cards up there, I felt reasonably ready to tackle the project. Oh, and one other thing that's fairly hotly contested, the lower leg situation. Some people theorize that the trousers were loose all the way to the ankle and the blousing effect was achieved by wrapping the winnegas tightly around the excess fabric at the calf. This is Jimmy's interpretation. And some people think that the lower edge of the pant legs were gathered to a band at the knee, perhaps one that covered the entire lower leg. This is Naomi's interpretation. Seeing as we don't have a ton of information either way, Partner went for the gathered to a band option for ease of dressing. He has a pair of wide pants that he gathers in with winnegas and finds it to be an entire pain in the ass. So gathered band it is. And since this is a the wardrobe is getting mighty slim situation, I'll be batch sewing 2 pairs at the same time. Everyone go grab your cuppa. Today I'm drinking Bog's Holler Tea by Old Growth Alchemy. It is an herbal blend designed in collaboration with the creators of the Old Gods of Appalachia podcast, which, if you are into cinematic horror, I highly recommend. This is nice. It's got some rosemary, some lemon balm. It tastes like an herb garden in the best way. Let's get into it. Because this pattern is so wildly different from any other pair of trousers I've ever made, I am going to make a full mock-up that I can try on Partner to make sure it fits how he wants. I don't generally buy muslin for mock-ups anymore. I like to go to the local thrift shop and find sheets to reuse. I try to grab the ones that are the most worn and would not be useful as sheets for much longer because I feel like I need to balance my choice to reuse fabric with other people who might need to use those sheets as sheets. I'm drafting the pieces directly onto the doubled fabric. If they fit well, then I'll trace them onto paper for a more lasting pattern, and if not, I can revise the pieces and refit them. After a quick tea break, I'm going to start basting the mock-up. I want something a little more permanent and less dangerous than straight pins, but easier to take apart than machine sewing. So after I pin all the pieces together, I'll use a cotton quilting thread and long running stitches to baste along the seams. I'm not being super precious about the pleats in the mock-up. I'd rather sacrifice precision for speed at this point in the process, especially if I have to do it over again because the mock-up doesn't fit. I didn't end up taking video of trying on the mock-up since it consisted of partners standing around half naked while I pinned and refitted just a bit, and that seems like a really great way to get demonetized on YouTube. Suffice it to say, we were both happy with the fit in the end. Once everything on the mock-up is finalized, I will transfer those pattern pieces to heavy craft paper for longevity purposes. This roll of craft paper is a bit narrower than I generally like, but it's pretty easy just to tape two lengths together with packing tape. Because I basted the mock-up together with fairly large stitches, it's easy to unpick them. Then I can lay out and trace each pattern piece. And as usual, I will label every single pattern piece with what it is, how many of them to cut and where, who the garment was made to fit, the date the pattern was drafted, and how much seam allowance there is. Like I did when I was batching Tornado's clothing for Gulf War, I am going to lay out and cut both fabrics at once. Again, this is a chancy thing to do if you have particularly slippery or wiggly fabrics, or are cutting more than 2 or 3 layers, but this is a heavyweight, non-wiggly linen with some grip to it, and the pattern pieces have some flexibility as well, so I feel comfortable cutting 2 layers at once. My pattern table is long enough, but not wide enough to cut the leg pattern piece all at once, so I've made a strategic retreat to the dining room table instead. Each piece is cut out separately because the leg piece is too wide to cut on the fold, so it takes some creative laying out. And then back to the cutting table for smaller gusset and cuff pieces. Time for another tea break before I thread up the machine with a thread color that will match both materials reasonably well, in this case navy blue, for batch sewing, and try to wrap my head around the geometry of these trousers. Okay, here we go. These are all the pattern pieces for the Hedeby trousers, so how do they actually fit together? Let's walk through it. I've made this handy dandy diagram showing what bits get sewn together, so the green line gets sewn to the green line and the blue to the blue, etc. Still confused? Me too, let's keep going. Here I have paper mock-ups of the leg, the seat, and the crotch pieces so I can show how they all get put together in a 3D space. I tried drawing a bunch of different diagrams, but they were all still confusing. First, the red gets attached to the red on the leg pieces. You can see how the rise curve is scooped out and we have this little straight tab sticking out. We'll get back to that in just a bit. Next, I'll attach the crotch gusset green to green with the smaller end of the trapezoid at the waistband and the wider end even with that little tab. And finally, I'll attach the seat piece blue to blue on the leg. Again, the narrow end will be at the waist and the wider end will be attached to the crotch gusset and leg tabs. Now just imagine another leg piece attaching the same way. Hopefully this was helpful in understanding exactly how this garment goes together. Now I can get started on doing that with the actual fabric pieces. I'm going with my standard 1/2-inch seams for finishing purposes later. For as weirdly as these pieces go together, the assembly went surprisingly quickly. Partner requested felled seams rather than serged ones, and let's be real, I prefer that myself when I have the time for it. And the heavyweight linen has a tendency to fray annoyingly, so I'm going to do my standard cut one seam allowance down by half, fold the other side over, and fell the folded edge to the fabric finish with black linen thread, since that will blend into both jewel tones well. I thought it might be fun to give you a tiny bit of insight into how much gear I packed to go film at Partner's house. I'm taking 2 cameras, several batteries, 2 remotes, 2 tripods, a microphone, and a tiny LED light panel. And this is a relatively lightly packed kit. Thank you to all my current and continuing Ko-fi members. Your support and the support of all my members and croissants makes it easier to do what I do and to provide quality content for everyone. Thank you so much. Stick around after this brief commercial break to watch me finish assembly. To pleat the pants to waistband and cuffs, I'm using the divide and conquer method because it's easy and nobody has time for actual math. These trousers are going to be so poofy. Once the waistband and cuffs are sewn onto the right sides, I can turn the inside seam allowance under and fill them into place. Since there is no fly opening on these trousers, the waistband is Partner's hip measurement. I will add belt loops so the belt he wove will keep the pants in place. I'm not entirely sure that these thin loops will do, but I can always replace them with wider ones or a drawstring if the waistband starts slipping out from under the belt. The final touch is sewing in a handmade tag that I stamped with my signature and OE ligature. Special thanks to Baron Constantia Keloatina, who made the fantastic pelican shirt partner is wearing in the reveal. The link to their shop is in the description. Please go check it out. Thank you for joining me today. Partner is thrilled with his new trousers and can't wait to incorporate them into rotation. Hopefully we'll have 1 or 2 events before the summer heat really hits and it gets too hot to wear anything but Roman. If you enjoyed this video, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, share, and click on that bell. You can find me as @Opus Elenae on all social media, and all my links will be in the description box, including the link to my Ko-fi, where you can leave a tip, browse the web shop, or join my membership tiers for additional content and a personal thank you of your very own in my next video. Until next time, be kind, do the work, continue supporting marginalized people, and keep creating. Hwyl!